What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Martial Arts Monday review. As this week we review 1979's incredibly entertaining film Mad Monkey Kung Fu, directed by and starring the legendary Lau Kar-leung as Uncle Chen. And he also, of course, did the fight choreography. This film was a welcome change of pace from a lot of the Chang-Chi/Venom mob movies that I've been watching and reviewing in succession, only because those films are very similar thematically, and this one is very different. Chang-Chi didn't really give the female characters much to do in his films, so Kara Hui is also in this. She gets to use some martial arts skills, so that was a welcome change. And this film also features something of a revelation to me, a guy that was so impressive that I'm going to talk about him here. I was like, who is this guy? How come I haven't seen him before? How come he's not super famous? Xiao Ho, and his character's name is very similar. They spell it differently, Xiao Ho, which means little monkey. The acrobatics that he does in the middle and later part of the film, he does most of the monkey kung fu. Just all kinds of acrobatics, jumping, leaping, hanging off of things, fighting. It's some crazy stuff. It's really comparable, I think, to only one person that I can think of from this time period, and that would be Jackie Chan. So just like the Drunken Master style of fighting was unorthodox, kind of crazy, kind of acrobatic, and also kind of humorous, so is this sort of Mad Monkey Kung Fu that Xiao Ho does in the film. And they even play some of the same music as they played in the Drunken Master films. I always thought of it as the Drunken Master music, but I guess that's not what it was originally called, or that's not where it was from originally. But this guy is incredible. You know, I'm thinking, how come I haven't seen this guy before? Well, when I looked him up, I have seen him before. He's been in such films as Leg Fighters and also Disciples of the 36th Chamber. But in that film, he had these ridiculously big buck teeth. And he was purely the comic relief. And then I've also seen him in a film called Cat vs. Rat, which is like a really funny kung fu comedy. I haven't seen it in some years, so I have to rewatch it before I review it. But I remember there was some really good acrobatics in that one as well. And then after this, you know, he had some roles. He had some more roles with Lau Kar-leung because they became a mentor and mentee. That's the kind of relationship they developed as a result of this film. So this film is kind of like his coming out party as far as his total skill set. Eventually, it would seem like his career would taper off and he would have small roles in such films as Royal Warriors and sometimes even playing like Thug Number One uncredited, which to me is kind of a shame. I don't know. Maybe just as he got older, he wasn't as interested. But I look forward to watching the next collaboration between Lau Kar-leung and Xiao Ho, which is called My Young Auntie, which is also on the set. So anyway, the plot involves traditional Chinese opera performers who have to take to the streets and do their act on the streets. And in the beginning, you have Uncle Chen dressed as the Monkey King performing an opera for Lo Lei. Now, Lo Lei's character is wealthy and he pays for the performance, which also involves Uncle Chen's sister and his assistant, Xiao Ho. And after the performance, he says, well, you're going to have to come have drinks with me. That was great. And then they start drinking. Lau Kar-leung puts on a little performance. He kind of beats up a couple guys, you know, just all in good fun and kind of shows off his monkey-style kung fu. Well, Lo Lei's character is a little bit jealous, and he's also eyeing up the sister, and he even says some weird things to his wife about the sister that you normally wouldn't say to his wife. But these two are basically just like schemers. They have a weird relationship. So they ply Lau Kar-leung with alcohol. They separate the sister from her brother, and then the wife of Lo Lei's character comes into the room, rips her blouse, and then runs out and says, he assaulted me. And they pretty much say, well, the penalty for that is death, but we'll give you a break. And they basically put his hands out, and they destroy his hands with clubs. So flash forward a few years, he's wearing bandages, and now he's performing on the street with an actual monkey, okay? And, you know, the monkey's doing all kinds of flips and tricks, and then they're selling a little bit of candy. Well, the problem is they have to pay protection money to a local gang of thugs that comes around, and they have a couple confrontations. The assistant is a little bit headstrong. He doesn't really, you know, appreciate being pushed around, so he kind of fights back a little bit. So then they eventually say, now it's going to be $2 instead of $1, and it's like, well, how are we going to make a living? And then one of the guys, and I have to warn you about this part, kills the monkey. And it's pretty graphic. I don't know if it was a real monkey. I'm going to hope that it wasn't. I got to tell you, when he grabs it and he starts swinging it around, You would think that would look kind of fake. That looked like a real monkey being swung around at a high speed, and then they smash it. And I hope that was not a real monkey at that very moment. So they become dejected. The assistant fights back. There's some pretty funny scenes where he uses fishing line to open up the guy's pocket and take the candy back. He slides a big leaf under the guy and the candy falls in the leaf. Lots of funny set pieces like that. Well, eventually, they really start having confrontations with this street gang, and then they basically end up living in a cave. And the middle section of the film is essentially Lau Kar-leung teaching his assistant how to do this monkey-style kung fu. After the monkey dies, he's trying to cheer up his master, and he's dressing up like a monkey. And at one point, you hear like rustling in the hay, and the master's like, "Oh, is that?" It's really sad. He says the name of the monkey, and then the guy pops out. He's like, "Oh, it's you," and he's like, "Oh, I'll be your monkey now." But he really just doesn't let up. He keeps persisting. So the guy's like, "All right, I'll train you to be like a monkey." So the training sequences are fantastic. There's, at one point he says, "Well, you're going to have to sleep on these 2 ropes. You've developed all this strength. You need to develop your arm strength. So you're going to sleep on this rope." Like all night. So it's crazy. The guy tries to get away with taking shortcuts in the training, and that doesn't work. Of course, later on, all the training that he does pays off when he has to actually confront the villains. But that's very entertaining. And, there's some really sad moments here. At one point, he says, "Hey, teacher, do you want a drink?" And he pushes it away, and he kind of remembers how he got drunk, and he's kind of embarrassed by that. And at one point, when they start fighting back against the street gang, well, after the monkey gets killed, he goes into a rage, Lau Kar-leung, and he starts fighting back. And then he looks at his bandaged hand, almost as if to remember, "Oh, right, I can't fight anymore because of my hands." But then you're thinking, well, is part of this in his head, maybe? You know what I mean? So he has to sort of confront his past as well as train his new protege. Well, eventually, just when you're wondering, hey, whatever happened to the Lo Lei character, it turns out he's meeting up with this street gang, and we find out that the sister is working for him, and essentially we just have a confrontation at the end between our 2 heroes and this whole gang. First they go through the gang members, and then eventually, of course, they will end up fighting Lo Lei, with Kara Hui getting a little bit of martial arts action in there as well. And, there's a funny part where Xiao Ho goes into the brothel wearing a disguise, which is basically he parts his hair in the middle and acts like a stuck-up wealthy guy. And they don't recognize him. I don't know. But it kind of works. Just a very entertaining film from start to finish. And the special features were fantastic. There's actually the whole idea of the Monkey King comes from Chinese literature. There's a famous book called Journey to the West, and apparently Penguin Books has a version of it just called The Monkey, so it might be worth checking out only because that character is such a fixture in these films. So looking forward to watching the next Lau Kar-leung and Xiao Ho collaboration. And what are your thoughts about Mad Monkey Kung Fu? Have you seen it? Let me know in the comments below. Come back again next week for another Martial Arts Monday review. Thanks.